Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Some good news for heavyweight boxing fans, with Daniel Dubois set to face Joe Joyce before the end of the year. That's confirmed, and it will be happening behind closed doors. So this is a fight that's been postponed 3 times, but it will happen before the end of 2020, although some details still to be locked down, including the venue. But also, they don't mention in this press release whether it's going to be pay-per-view or not. So I'll get to the quotes and the other information in this release and then a few thoughts. But I guess we can basically take it to the bank. It will be pay-per-view, but perhaps with the initial sort of rescheduling here, they didn't want to sort of muddy the waters and they just wanted to talk about this fight happening. So this is going to be one of the best prospect level fights in years. I'm glad it's happening. A small sliver of good news in 2020 for heavyweight boxing fans. Obviously, we haven't had a lot to sort of sink our teeth into. But this press release, so see here on screen, so terms agreed for Dubois versus Joyce behind closed doors. The titanic tussle between the two standout British heavies will now be staged in either late November or early December, with full details to follow shortly. So Frank Warren, it says that he was initially skeptical about running the event without fans, but has decided, in light of the recent coronavirus developments, it is important for both the boxers and the fans that this fight gets made. Warren's stated, since the government let us know we couldn't have an audience present in October, I've worked day and night to ensure this fight still happens. It's the biggest domestic heavyweight clash in years. It's a testament to the character of both fighters that they are willing to step up and take the fight on, even with all the restrictions and obstacles in the way. I'm delighted that Queensbury, BT Sport and the fighters were all willing to come together to make this happen and deliver big time for British boxing fans. I guess I'll just jump in there for a moment. I mean, it makes a lot of sense for these guys to make the fight. BT will be crying out for good content like this. Queensbury needs to have big cards that can make some money, bring some revenue in the door at a time where we have been hearing reports they've been doing it a bit tough financially, but also just, you know, having these fights at this point in time for the fans as well, which Frank Warren always goes on for the fans, yada yada yada. That is actually a good thing for us. Although we have to pay for this by the look of it, still, this is a fight I'm willing to pay for. I know some people are a little bit on the fence, but it will fall in a period because Matchroom's got 3 pay-per-views coming up. So this is going to be 4 UK pay-per-views in the space of about 40 days or so. So the fans will be dipping their hands into their pockets in the coming months, just in the run-up to Christmas. And it might be a little bit of a stretch for some, given the circumstances. You know, some people reduced hours or out of work, or just, you know, keeping the purse strings a little bit tighter. But in terms of the comments here, so he also says it's really a winner-take-all. In Daniel, you have a 23-year-old lad who most in the world boxing consider to be the hottest young prospect in the heavyweight division. If he can do to Joe Joyce what he's done to the 15 men that came before him, he'll be ready to go for a world title, in my opinion. That quote there probably does forget the Kevin Johnson performance where Daniel Dubois was taken to points, but that's just a little bit of nitpicking there. But he says Joe might be a little older than Daniel, but in my books, he's every bit as exciting a prospect. He's so much more experienced than Daniel as an amateur that I'd be surprised if he doesn't go into the fight as many people's favourite. From what I'm seeing at the moment, from the way people are talking about this fight, it's sort of the other way. People are sort of tending to lean towards Daniel Dubois, although Joe Joyce is a live dog in this fight, that's for sure. It's not some sort of 90-10 sort of fight. This is actually a very good prospect level fight. Well, I don't think we've had one matched this competitively and high profile for some years. So Warren continues, if Joe wins, then he'll be ready for world titles too. Daniel Dubois says, nothing's changed from February when I first said I'd knock Joe out. It's a tough fight. He's a good fighter, but I'm still looking to deliver another devastating performance and move on to fight for a world title. I'm just glad we can finally get it on. I know we've both been looking forward to it, and I'm sure the British public are just as excited as we are to finally fight. Joe is going to find out how explosive Dynamite really is. And then Joyce, who recently actually had his 35th birthday. And I know some people, because of his age, don't consider him to be a prospect. But look, he only turned pro a few years ago. So in my book, he still is at that prospect phase, you know, towards the end of it, of course. But he says, the fight is finally on, and I can't wait to get my hands on this guy. It's going to be an explosive night. So short and sweet there. And then Warren talks about the ticketing situation, because there had been quite a number of tickets that had been sold. I believe somewhere between either half or 3/4 had been sold. So Warren says, of course, I'd like to come out with all the venue and date details ready to go, but the reality is the situation is moving so fast we don't have everything 100% confirmed. But one thing we do have confirmed is that this fight will happen behind closed doors, either in late November or early December. This means the event in October is cancelled, and all ticket holders should get a refund from their ticket agent. So that is clearly good news for those who had bought tickets. At least they'll get their money back. But I guess bad news in the sense they won't be able to see it live. But we will get to see it. Presumably it will be on pay-per-view. But yeah, my thoughts on this fight, they largely haven't changed, because this is a fight I've been looking forward to. It was one of the fights in the heavyweight division of the ones that had been made pre-pandemic that I was looking forward to most, because there's quite a bit you know, on the line here for both. Obviously Dubois, being as young as he is, if he lost, he could come again. But it was a good test for Dubois in the sense that Joyce would be the best opponent that he'd ever faced. A guy with some experience who obviously from the amateurs had been an Olympic silver medalist, and he'd had a sort of decent career in the amateurs, and so far he'd made every poster winner in the pros. He has a better win on his resume than Daniel Dubois in the form of Bryant Jennings. So Joyce is tested to a degree in the heavyweight division, but for Dubois, we haven't really sort of seen what he's quite made of yet. We know he can punch, we know he's explosive, but what's going to happen when someone can sort of stand up to the power, or someone can actually make him work a bit more? What if things aren't going his way? What if he actually gets sort of tested in a way that he's not used to? He's been fighting a lot of largely sort of low-level opponents so far, sort of sprinkled in with tests along the way. The Nathan Gorman fight was an appropriate fight in mid-2019 for the level that he was at, but he hasn't kicked on since then. We've had the likes of Ebenezer Tete, and more recently Ricardo Schneider's, you know, Kyotaru Fujimoto. Those fights told us nothing about Dubois, and they probably didn't give him much either, apart from activity. So it's a great opportunity to sort of see what he's really made of, and it'd be great to see if Joyce can actually land some shots on him, so we know how good his chin is, because Dubois really hasn't been in with a big puncher. Joyce doesn't necessarily have that massive one-punch concussive KO power, but he hits hard, he hits thudding, and if he does catch you and pretty clean, you know, you're going to stay hit. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of these elements, some of the testing things that we know Dubois needs to sort of pass before he gets to that real world level sort of opponent. And in Joyce, if he can manage to sort of upset, because it would be an upset of sorts, to beat Daniel Dubois, then clearly if he did a number on Dubois, for example, I think we'd be saying, look, get him into a big fight as soon as possible. And Joyce has been wanting that, basically from the time that he turned pro. And remember, he signed with David Haye, and then he was over in America with PBC. Now he's come back to Frank Warren. He's been looking for opportunities, shortcuts, to go from, you know, lower level prospect fights into contender level type fights. And that win against Bryant Jennings, although, you know, somewhat past prime Jennings, I would say, it was a good performance overall, although he was hurt early in that fight to the body. So there's questions about Joyce, but you know, his offense is his defense to some extent. But can he, you know, put Daniel Dubois under pressure? You know, this is going to be a fight where Joyce is the taller guy. He's going to have a reach that's about the same as Daniel Dubois. It's not Dubois facing smaller non-punchers. So, you know, there's a lot to like about the fight, and I'm really looking forward to it. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.